The rain beat against my windshield like it wanted to break through. I could barely see the road ahead, just the faint glow of my headlights cutting through sheets of water. Taking that back road to my sister's engagement party seemed like a smart idea at the time, until my car coughed, sputtered, and died under a flickering streetlight in the middle of nowhere. No bars on my phone, no houses in sight. The storm raged around me, shaking the car with each gust of wind. I was calculating how long it would take to walk for help when headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. A red pickup truck pulled up. Beside me, the passenger window rolling down just enough for me to see the driver's face. "Need a ride?" The man, Jake, he said his name was, smiled, but his eyes stayed flat and cold. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Everything in me screamed to say no, but the rain was getting worse, and I was still wearing my nice dress for the party. The moment I closed the truck door, the locks clicked down. Not automatic, he pressed the button. Jake kept asking questions. "You married? Kids?" His fingers drummed against the wheel like he was counting down to something. The radio was off, so all I heard was the storm and the tapping of his fingers. Then he turned off the main road. "Just a shortcut," he said when I stiffened. But the trees closed in so tight, their branches scraped the truck's sides. The headlights lit up a boarded-up house at the end of the lane, paint peeling, porch sagging. No mechanic lived there. The place barely had a roof. My phone screen showed one bar. I held it up like it was a lifeline. "My husband is tracking me. He'll be here any second." Jake's smile dropped so fast, it was like I'd flipped a switch. His hand shot toward me. I kicked the door so hard the lock broke, and then I was running. Branches whipped at my arms, my dress tearing on thorns. I didn't look back, not even when I heard his boots hit the ground behind me. The woods were so dark I could barely see, but I remembered a creek near the main road water meant people. Something grabbed the back of my dress. I twisted free, leaving a strip of fabric in his grip. The sound of the creek let me know I was close. Headlights appeared through the trees as a semi-truck rumbled down the highway. I burst onto the shoulder, waving my arms, and the driver slammed on his brakes. Jake's truck was already gone when the police arrived. They found his real name was on no driver's records, and the red pickup hadn't been reported stolen. The abandoned house? Foreclosed 5 years earlier. No one had lived there since, though the officers found blankets, ropes, and a cooler full of food in the basement. Trusting strangers can be deadly. That night taught me to always have an escape plan and never, ever get in a car just because it's raining. The motel sign buzzed and flickered in the rain. Half the letters burned out. Room 17 smelled like cigarettes and something sour under the carpet. I told myself I'd just sleep and leave at dawn. The storm outside made the walls creak like the whole place might collapse. A floorboard near the bed moved when I stepped on it. I knelt down and pried it up with my car key. Underneath was a small metal ring set into wood trapdoor. It groaned when I pulled it open, revealing a darkness so thick my hand disappeared when I reached in. I almost dropped my phone when I turned on the flashlight. The crawl space stretched farther than the motel's walls should allow. Someone had walked through here recently. 2 sets of footprints in the dust, one smaller than the other. The tracks led toward a tunnel branching off to the left. That's when I heard them. Voices echoed up through the hole, muffled but clear enough to make out words. "The shipment arrives at midnight," a man said. The reply made my skin go cold. It was the clerk from the front desk, the one who'd handed me my key with that greasy smile. "Make sure room 17's occupied. Always better when they're sleeping." A metal pipe leaned against the tunnel wall. My elbow knocked it over as I scrambled back. The clang rang out like a gunshot. The voices stopped. Then came the sound owl. Never forget boots scraping against dirt. coming fast toward the opening beneath me. I slammed the trapdoor down so hard the floorboard splintered. My hands shook as I shoved the bed over the spot. The whole room smelled like wet earth now, like something had crawled up from below. Something scraped against the underside of the floor. Once, twice, then silence. I sat in my car all night with the doors locked. At sunrise, I saw the clerk watching me from the office window. His smile was gone. He looked disappointed. The police found nothing when they searched room 17, no trapdoor, no tunnel. But 3 days later, they pulled 2 bodies from the river 10 miles downstream. Both had motel key cards in their pockets. Room 17. Some doors should never be opened. What I saw in that tunnel still gives me nightmares. Now, I always check under the bed first. And I never, ever stay on the ground floor. The storm left me stranded somewhere deep in the woods, my GPS showing nothing but static. That's when I saw the cabin. "It's for rent" signs swung back and forth in the wind, the chain squeaking with each movement. The key was under the mat, just like the note taped to the door said. Inside smelled like pine needles and something else, something metallic. The fireplace was already set with fresh logs, matches laid neatly on the mantel. A journal sat open. On the kitchen table, the last entry dated 3 days earlier. The handwriting looked rushed, the letters slanting wildly. It mimics voices. Don't trust what you hear. The rest of the page was torn out. I told myself it was just some kid's idea of a joke. The rain hammered the roof as I started a fire, the flames casting long shadows on the walls. Around midnight, the first knock came. Soft at first, like someone brushing their knuckles against the wood. Then a voice clear as day. "Let me in, I'm freezing." My sister's voice. Every inflection, the way she always dragged out the word freezing. But my sister was in Cancun, sending me sunset photos from the beach just hours ago. The knocking grew louder when I didn't answer. Not random pounding 3 sharp raps, then silence. 3 more. The pattern repeated until the whole cabin shook with each impact. The door handle rattled, then turned. The lock held, but the wood around the latch groaned like it was about to splinter. And it spoke again. This time, it was my voice. Not just my words, my exact tone, the slight rasp I get when I'm tired. "Please," it begged, "just let me in. I'm so cold." I backed away until my shoulders hit the fireplace. The journal entry flashed in my mind. IT mimics voices. I grabbed the poker from the fireplace and held it like a weapon. The knocking stopped. For a full minute, there was nothing but the sound of rain. Then something scraped against the door, long, slow drags from top to bottom. Claws? Fingernails? I didn't wait to find out. I ran to the bedroom and barricaded the door with the dresser. The window was too small to climb through, but I could see the porch from there. Moonlight reflected off the wet wood, showing nothing but empty space. And movement, a shadow detaching itself from the trees. It was tall, too tall, its limbs stretching like they weren't quite solid. It tilted its head toward the window, and I ducked just in time. The rest of the night passed in silence. At dawn, I crept to the front door. Deep grooves marked the wood. 4 parallel lines dug into the paint. The key was still under the mat. The journal was gone. I drove straight to the rental agency in town. The woman at the desk frowned when I described the cabin. "That place hasn't been rented in years," she said. "Not since the last tenant disappeared." She pulled out a ledger, flipping to a page marked with a red sticker. The last entry was dated 3 days ago, the same date as the journal. The name was scratched out, but the note beside it was clear. "Do not rent. Pending investigation. Nature has predators worse than bears." Whatever was outside that cabin didn't just want to get in, it wanted to become me. Now, I always check rental records before I stay anywhere. And if I ever see another journal lying open on a table, I don't read it. I run. I came home from work to find a man sitting on my couch. He looked up from his phone like he belonged there. "Oh, hey," he said. "I'm your new roommate." He held up a piece of paper that looked like a lease agreement. My name was on it, but I'd signed nothing. The landlord confirmed it was fake when I called. "No new tenants," he said, "and definitely no male roommates for your unit." When I went back inside, the man was gone. I thought that was the end of it. 3 days later, I saw him in my parking spot. He smiled and waved like we were old friends. The next morning, there he was at my usual coffee shop, sipping an espresso at my favorite table. Always smiling, always watching. I started checking my locks 3 times before bed. Then I found the first camera. It was hidden inside my smoke detector, the lens barely visible behind the plastic slats, pointed directly at my bed. I ripped it out, my hands shaking. That's when I noticed the other smoke detectors didn't sit quite flush against the ceiling. The police found 7 cameras in total, 2 in smoke detectors, 1 in the bathroom vent, 4 disguised as phone chargers plugged into outlets. The devices were high-end, with tiny memory cards that held months of footage. Detectives traced the lease back to a print shop downtown. The clerk remembered the man. Tall, quiet, paid cash. Came in 3 times to get the font just right. In the footage from my building security cameras, they spotted him tailgating behind other residents at least a dozen times, always carrying packages like he belonged. They showed me his photo collection. Hundreds of pictures printed on glossy paper, neatly organized in binders. Me at my kitchen window. Me folding laundry. Me sleeping. The timestamps showed he'd been watching me for 9 months before he moved in. The creepiest shots were the ones taken from inside my apartment, close-ups of my toothbrush, my pillow, my shower gel, all captured while I was at work. He'd been inside many times before that day on the couch. The police found his fingerprints on the back of my dresser and inside my closet. The stalker was caught 3 states away, trying the same scam on another woman. His car trunk contained more fake leases, bundles of zip ties, and a dentist's mold. "Kit," the detective told me, "he wasn't just watching. He was practicing to become you. Predators don't always lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes they come with paperwork and a convincing smile. Now I change my locks every 6 months, and I always check the smoke detectors. Not for batteries anymore, for eyes where they shouldn't be." The police kept most of the photos as evidence, but one sticks in my mind. It showed me reading on the couch, completely unaware. The timestamp put the picture at 2:13 a.m. The camera flash should have woken me. It didn't. That's when I realized he'd been inside while I slept more times than I could count. My apartment management installed new security measures after that. Key fob access. Cameras in every hallway. But I still startle when the elevator dings on my floor. And sometimes, when I come home, I stand outside my door for a full minute listening, just in case there's someone inside, waiting to smile at me again. They say you should change your routines after a stalking incident. I changed everything: my grocery store, my gym, even my commute. But a year later, I got an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photo of me walking into my new building. The timestamp was from last Tuesday. The handwritten note beneath it read, "Missed you. New lease attached." I burned the photo. I moved again. This time, I didn't leave a forwarding address. Predators don't give up easily. Neither do I. That forged lease still gives me nightmares. Not because of what it said, but because of how real it looked. Perfect signatures, correct dates, official letterhead, everything but my actual consent. The detective told me these types of predators study their victims for months. Before making contact, now I check every document twice. I shred all my mail. And when service people come to my door, I verify their ID with the company before I let them in. Because the scariest predators aren't the ones who lurk in shadows. They're the ones who know how to perfectly imitate the light. The diner was empty when the clock hit 2 a.m. Just me, the hum of the soda machine, and the flickering neon sign. Outside, then the bell above the door jingled. 2 men in blue work uniforms walked in, their boots leaving dark streaks on the tile I just mopped. "We can't move it until 3 a.m., the taller one muttered as they slid into a booth. His partner glared at the security camera in the corner before answering, "Truck's not ready." They kept their voices low, but the empty diner carried every word. Brought them coffee. The shorter one had something crusted under his fingernails, red-brown, like dried paint. Except when he reached for the sugar, I saw his sleeve was stained too. The same color, the same consistency. My hand shook when I poured, sloshing hot liquid onto the saucer. The one with stained nails watched me wipe it up. "Long shift?" His smile showed too many teeth. I nodded, forcing myself to meet his eyes. That's when I noticed the bloodshot veins spider-webbing across the whites. Not tired, not high. Afraid, they ordered pie. No plates, just 2 forks from my apron pocket. I turned toward the kitchen, and that's when it happened. A wet plop as something hit the trash can liner. Through the service window, I saw him drop a bloody rag into my freshly changed bin. Not a napkin, not a tissue. A torn strip of fabric, soaked through. The phone was in the back by the walk-in freezer. I dialed 911 with one hand while the other flipped the blender switch. The roar of crushed ice covered my whispered words to the dispatcher. 2 males, khaki uniforms, possible blood evidence. My throat closed around the next part. I think they hurt someone. When I returned, they'd pushed aside their plates. The tall one stood abruptly when the refrigerator motor kicked on, twitchy, scanning the diner's corners like he expected someone. His partner was wiping down the table with a napkin. Too thorough, too careful. The police arrived in 7 minutes. Longest 7 minutes of my life. I refilled coffees I knew they wouldn't drink. Wiped counters that were already clean. The cops entered quietly, no sirens, no lights, but the men bolted anyway. The shorter one slammed into a waitress stand on his way out, sending sugar packets flying. They caught them at a roadblock 2 miles away. The truck matched one reported stolen from a construction site. In the back, wrapped in a tarp, was a body. The missing night watchman from the industrial park. A security footage showed these same 2 men dragging something heavy across the parking lot at 1:17 a.m. The detective told me later their uniforms were stolen too. Fake IDs in the glove box. A list of 24-hour businesses scribbled on. A napkin, our diner circled in red. They'd picked me because of the blind spot by the restrooms where the camera didn't reach. Because the night baker called in sick. Because graveyard shifts mean being alone with strangers who don't care about minimum wage workers. They found the real weapon wrapped in that bloody rag, a pipe wrench from the construction site. A lab matched the fingerprints to 3 unsolved. Assaults at truck stops along I-80. The detective said I was lucky. I don't feel lucky. I feel the cold press of the walk-in door against my back every time the bell jingles after midnight. Now, I keep a baseball bat under the counter. I memorize the locations of all the security cameras. And when someone lingers too long in the bathroom, I don't check on them. I lock the register and step outside where the streetlights touch the pavement. Minimum wage shouldn't mean maximum. Danger. Those 7 minutes taught me to trust the prickling on my neck more than the smile on a customer's face. The cops took the bloody rag as evidence. They never did find what happened to the other 5 rags missing from the construction. Site's first aid kit. I still work nights. Someone has to. But I don't wear earbuds anymore. I don't turn my back for long. And when the soda machine gurgles too loud, I don't jump. I reach under the counter first. Just in case. The part that haunts me isn't what they did. It's how normal. They looked drinking their coffee. How easily they could have been anyone. The detective showed me their mug shots, later clean-shaven. Tired-eyed men you'd pass in a hardware store without a second glance. Now when businessmen come in for 3 a.m. Pancakes. I note which hand holds the fork. When truckers pay in cash, I check their boots for stains. And if someone leaves a rag in my trash can, I don't touch it. I call the cops first. Then I lock myself in the freezer until they arrive. I'd rather explain frozen peas stuck to my apron than end up on someone's list. The diner owner installed panic buttons after that. They're bolted under every table. Bright red. Impossible to miss. But sometimes, when the night stretches too long, I still practice my 911 voice, calm, clear, giving descriptions that might save my life. Because in the end, cameras don't stop crimes. Bodies do, and I refuse to be theirs. Last week, a new waitress found a folded napkin in the men's room. A list in smudged pencil, 20 addresses. Ours was circled. The cops said it was probably nothing. I don't work Tuesdays anymore. The rain came down so hard our windshield wipers couldn't keep up. Somewhere along Highway 9, I'd taken a wrong turn. The GPS showed nothing but twisting red lines through blank space. That's when we saw the lights, a sprawling Victorian house with every window glowing yellow through the storm. A man stood on the porch before we even knocked. Come in, come in. He shouted over the rain, beckoning us inside like he'd been expecting us. His smile stretched too wide. Roads will be washed out till morning. You'll stay the night. It wasn't a question. The foyer smelled like old wood and damp wallpaper. My wife squeezed my hand too tight. They sat us at a dining table set for 5, though we were only 4. The owner, he never gave his name, served stew from a tarnished silver tureen. This valley floods quick, he said, ladling thick broth into bowls. Folks get lost here regular. My daughter pushed carrots around her plate while the man watched her every move. That's when I noticed the portraits. 6 oil paintings lined the dining room walls, all of somber men in black suits. Their eyes followed me when I shifted in my seat. I blinked, and one gentleman's frown had become a smirk. My wife saw it too, her fork clattered against her plate. Our host just smiled and wiped his mouth with a yellowed napkin. After dinner, he showed us to our rooms. The hallway seemed longer than the house's exterior should allow. My daughter got a nursery with faded circus wallpaper. There's extra blankets in the closet, the man said, pausing too long at her doorway before leaving us alone. I was tucking her in when she whispered, "Daddy?" The lady in the closet says we can't leave. The hair on my neck stood up. I crossed the room in 3 steps and yanked the closet door open. Nothing but mothball-scented darkness and a single black dress swaying gently on a hanger. No breeze, no open windows. The moment I touched the dress fabric, a floorboard creaked behind me. Our host stood in the doorway, holding a kerosene lamp. "Just checking if you need anything," he said. The shadows made his face look sunken, skull-like. The light flickered, though there was no draft. Downstairs, a grandfather clock struck midnight. No, that couldn't be right. We'd arrived at 8:30. I counted the chimes anyway. 13. The number rattled through the house like something shaking bars. That's when my wife emerged from our room down the hall, her face pale. "The bathroom," she whispered. "There's no pipes behind the sink." We packed in silence while our host rested his eyes in the parlor. My son swore someone had been breathing under his bed. The nursery closet door crept open again as we hurried out, though none of us had touched it. I didn't look inside. This time, got the car started on the first try despite the storm. We fishtailed down the muddy driveway. In the rearview mirror, every light in the house went out at once. Not like someone flipped a switch, like something inhaled all the light at once. We parked at a gas station 10 miles down the road and slept in the car, taking turns staying awake. At dawn, I backtracked to find the turnoff, just to prove to myself it had been real. The road ended at a collapsed bridge. Beyond the rushing water stood nothing but overgrown fields. No house, no driveway. Just a weather-beaten sign, Green Hollow Population 12. The gas station attendant recognized my description. "Oh, you saw the dinner party house." He chuckled like I'd told an inside joke. Storm brings travelers to that place. Most winters. Never can find it in daylight. His grin faded when my daughter asked about the lady in the closet. "Only one rule about Green Hollow," he said, wiping his hands on an oily rag. "Don't eat the stew." Later, digging through my daughter's backpack, I found a napkin from dinner with looping handwriting. "So glad you'll be staying. Forever." I never showed it to my wife. Some shelters are traps. Now when GPS fails, we pull over and wait out storms on the roadside. Last month, my son pointed out a Victorian house in a storybook. I closed the book too fast. The picture had shown 6 diners around a table, 4 of them clearly us dot. And sometimes, when I open our closet at home, I catch a whiff of mothballs for half a second before it fades. That black dress isn't ours. None of us packed it. But it hangs there between my winter coats, swaying slightly when no windows are open. We've tried throwing it away 5 times. It's always back by morning. After the last attempt, we found our daughter sleepwalking at 3 a.m., whispering to the empty closet. They're almost ready for us. The gas station closed last winter. The sign still stands, though. Green Hollow Population 12. Sometimes I do the math. 4 from my family, the host, the 6 portrait men, the closet lady. That makes 12 exactly. Last week I noticed the population sign now reads 13. I check it every time we pass. The number keeps going up. The Airbnb had nothing but 5-star reviews. Perfect getaway. Impeccably clean. Not one mentioned the tiny lens I spotted inside the bedside clock when I went to turn off the alarm. The dot of glass sat flush with the 6 on the clock face, nearly invisible unless the light hit it just right. I told myself it was just a reflection. Then I found the second one in the shower head. I dropped my shampoo bottle, and when I bent to pick it up, I saw another lens nestled between the nozzles. Not a water-saving device, not a manufacturing mark. A camera, positioned to see everything. The host's profile showed him smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower 2 days ago. Currently in Paris, his bio read. But that night, lying in bed, I heard footsteps pacing the attic directly above me. Slow, deliberate. Then the creak of floorboards near the access panel in the hallway ceiling. I checked the attic the next morning. The dust lay undisturbed except for 2 parallel tracks leading to the far wall. Something had been dragged through it repeatedly. The tracks ended at a small door barely big enough to crawl through. It wasn't on the property's floor plan. That's when I hacked the security system. The rental used smart locks with cloud storage for camera footage. The password was still set to default the host's birthday from his profile. I accessed the feeds from my laptop, starting with the front. Door camera from last week. It showed the host letting himself in with a key, just like normal. Then the footage skipped. Suddenly, he was carrying a duffel bag toward the attic ladder. The timestamp jumped again. Now he was leaving, but the bag was gone. The next clip showed a woman unlocking the front door with her rental code. As she walked upstairs. A shadow moved in the attic access panel behind her. I switched to the bathroom camera feed. It time-stamped read 3:17 a.m. from 2 nights before my stay. The shower curtain moved without anyone touching it. Then a hand reached out from behind it, pale, with dirt under the fingernails, and adjusted the showerhead camera slightly. The attic door in the footage wasn't the one I'd found. This one was smaller, hidden between the bedroom walls. When I examined the baseboard in my room, I found scratch marks where something heavy had been moved repeatedly. I pried it open with a butter knife from the kitchen. Inside was a crawl space just tall enough to crouch in. Empty food wrappers littered the floor. A sleeping bag lay flattened against the far wall, and a nest of cables ran from the wall into a small monitor, feed showing every camera in the house from a secret vantage point. The current image was me, kneeling in the crawl space, staring at the screen. Something creaked behind me. I turned just in time to see the crawl space door shutting on its own. The lock clicked from the outside. That's when I noticed the second monitor, this one showing camera feeds from 3 other properties on the host's rental list. In each one, unsuspecting guests went about their business, completely unaware they weren't alone. The host hadn't been in Paris. He'd been inside the walls the whole time. I kicked open the door and got out. The police found remains of meals eaten while watching the cameras, unlabeled hard drives filled with footage, and notes pages and pages documenting guests' habits, weaknesses, routines. The host got away. The Paris flight he posted about was real. He boarded it, took the photos for his profile, and immediately flew back under a different name. They caught him 6 months later doing the same thing in Oregon. Privacy is an illusion in the sharing economy. Now I travel with an RF detector that can spot hidden cameras. I bring industrial-strength duct tape to cover all vents and small openings. And I never, ever trust 5-star reviews. The worst part wasn't finding the cameras. It was realizing how many people had stayed there before me and never noticed a thing. The police showed me footage recovered from the hard drives, hundreds of guests going about their lives, completely exposed. Now, whenever I stay somewhere new, I knock on all the walls. I check behind every mirror. I measure rooms to see if the dimensions match the floor plan. 3 rentals out of 10 have discrepancies. The host pled guilty to 37 counts of unlawful surveillance. The judge gave him 4 years. 90 days for each of us he watched without consent. Last month, I got an alert that someone accessed my Airbnb account from a new device. The login location showed France. I deleted my profile immediately. But sometimes, when I'm in a hotel bathroom, I still glance at the showerhead. They never found all his hard drives. One camera had a particularly disturbing feed pointed not at the guests, but at the outside of each property, recording his own comings and goings. The footage showed him entering walls through hidden access points at neighboring houses. How many others were in on it? I moved, changed my name online, but 6 months later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a USB drive labeled Room 4 Camera 2. I destroyed it without plugging it in. The police said that was smart. The host's lawyer claimed all footage was destroyed, but victims kept coming forward. Someone mailed one woman clips of her changing clothes with a note, "Missed you at the reunion." Big rental companies now advertise verified properties with anti-surveillance checks. I don't trust those either. That crawl space still shows. Up in my dreams, not just the dust and the cold silence. Not just the monitors showing unaware people living their lives, but the certainty that someone else has seen that footage too. Someone who never got caught. Always check behind the headboard. Now, always look for fresh screw holes in the ceiling. And I never charge my phone near the bed. Some signals can be intercepted through power lines. The host's notebook contained Detailed sketches of each property's hidden passages. One page showed a residence with 7 different viewing angles into the shower. Beneath it, he'd written, 14 guests so far. None suspected a thing. I burned all my rental receipts after that, but I kept the duct tape, just in case. You can never be too careful. Some invasions aren't digital. They happen inches from where you sleep, 2 buildings over, through walls you think are solid. Smiling, as he watches you hit play on another harmless-looking rental video. Solo camping was how I cleared my head. Just me, my tent, and the trees. That changed during my 4th night in Black Pine Forest. I woke at 3 a.m. to something brushing against. The tent fabric. Not wind, something deliberate, moving in one long stroke from the peak down to the ground. I lay there clutching my hunting knife until sunrise. The prints appeared the next morning. 5 of them, circling my tent in perfect symmetry. Not boot marks, not animal tracks. Just deep impressions in the dirt, each about 18 inches long, with 4 toe-like indentations at the front. Too wide to be human, too structured to be bare. I packed up fast that day, but I came back the following weekend. Big mistake, the forest changed after dark. No owl hoots, no cricket chirps, just utter silence broken by occasional cracking branches, something heavy moving through the underbrush just beyond my firelight. Around 2 a.m. each night, the footsteps started. Slow, deliberate circles around my campsite. The 3rd night, I set up my trail camera facing the tent. The photo showed a blur. Not a smudge from movement, a deliberate distortion, like something bending light around itself. Just enough outline visible to tell it was tall. 7 feet at least. Standing right over my sleeping form, its elongated shadow stretching across the tent wall. The timestamp read 3:33 a.m. I never woke up that time. A park ranger named Henderson responded when I reported it. He inspected the site, took notes, and examined my camera. His fingers froze on the delete button when the image appeared. Glitch, he said too quickly. Happens with moisture damage. But the camera had been sealed in a waterproof case all week. He confiscated the memory card anyway. 2 days later, I found Henderson's card left in my mailbox. No note. Just 37 identical images from other cameras throughout the forest, each showing that same blurred shape at different sites. Always at 3:33 a.m. Always near occupied tents. The last photo wasn't blurred. It showed a Park Service jacket, abandoned on a trail, the sleeves torn clean off at the shoulders. I went back one final time with a thermal scope. The forest showed cold and still until midnight. Then something warm emerged from the tree line. Not animal, not human, just a heat signature moving in that same circular pattern. It paused at my tripwire alarm, reached down, and disabled it perfectly. That's when I realized whatever it was understood technology, understood camping gear, had watched us long enough to learn that the thermal footage got corrupted when I tried to email it to myself. Only one frame remained, a flash of writing carved into a nearby birch tree, not recent. The scar tissue was old, the bark regrown around the letters. They walked the rings at night. The wood beneath the carving felt strangely soft, pulsing, like the tree itself was terrified. Now I camp at designated sites with ranger patrols. Even there, I set perimeter alarms. Last month, another solo hiker disappeared near Black Pine. Search teams found his tent still standing, his sleeping bag zipped up from the inside, and 5 fresh prints circling the nylon. Too big for boots, too precise for animals. The news didn't report the strangest part, how the hiker's trail camera was found pointing at the tent, memory card intact. The last photo showed a timestamp of 3:33 a.m., an empty sleeping bag, and the blurred outline of something bending down to unzip it from the outside. The Forest Service called it a bear attack. I know better. Nature doesn't always welcome visitors. Some places watch back. Whatever lives in those woods didn't just notice my presence. It studied me. Maybe it's still studying the photos Henderson deleted. Or maybe, like the trees, it remembers everything. Sometimes when I'm backpacking now, I'll find a single footprint. In the mud, always that same unnatural shape. Always facing my tent. I've started noticing them closer to town each year. Last week, I found one in my apartment complex's courtyard, right outside my ground floor window. The maintenance guy sprayed it away with a hose before I could take a picture. The Park Service closed Black Pine to overnight camping last month. Predator activity was all the notice said. I drove out there the day after it took effect. 4 ranger trucks sat at the entrance. They weren't turning people away, though. They were processing hunters with military-grade equipment. Whatever. They're trying to kill out there. They're not using normal protocols. I still hike during daylight, but I always check tree trunks now. The carvings are appearing in new forest scene message every time. They walk the rings at night. Sometimes the words are fresh. Sometimes the bark's grown over them like they've been there decades. A ranger friend told me to stop looking. Said the deeper truth would keep me up at night. He was right. Last month, I accessed an old Forestry Service database. The earliest reports date back to 1923, a trapper's journal describing devils that walk circles round a man's camp. Every decade since has similar disappearances. Always solitary campers. Always in perfect health. Always just ... gone. Only commonality? Diaries or cameras recovered at the scenes always reference activity around 3 a.m. The files mention one other detail, always redacted. Whatever got censored must be worse than the disappearances themselves. Now when I camp, I bring a friend who snores loud. Never tell them why. The thing that hates groups has never taken someone with witnesses. Still, I sleep with bare mace in one hand and a flare gun in the other. Not for bears. For whatever leaves those prints, whatever disables alarms, whatever's been thinning out solo hikers for at least 100 years. Black Pine reopened for camping last week. The notice said, "Threat neutralized." I drove past yesterday. Those same ranger trucks were still there, parked in that same circle. Empty. The weird part? 5 fresh sets of tracks surrounding them. Too large for boots. Too precise for animals. And in the center of that circle, one final print facing inward. They think they trapped it. I think it let them dot the night shift at Kronos Financial, paid double, but the building gave me the creeps. Empty offices have their own sounds AC, units humming, chairs settling, the occasional ping from a dying fluorescent light. The 5th floor was always locked, but that Thursday, the door stood slightly ajar. A thin line of yellow light bled into the dark hallway. The smell hit me first, something sharp and chemical, under the usual lemon cleaner scent. I pushed the door open slowly. 3 men in impeccable suits stood around a conference table, sleeves rolled up. White powder dusted their cuffs as they packed bricks into printer paper boxes. The closest one froze mid-motion when he saw me. I recognized him, Mr. Delaney, from accounting. Even without seeing him every Thursday at 2 a.m., I'd know that slick back. Hair anywhere. His eyes flicked to something behind me. That's when I heard the click. The door had shut on its own. Or someone had closed it. Just finishing up some quarterly reports, Delaney said too casually. A fleck of white powder clung to his eyebrow. The other 2 men stopped packing. One reached slowly toward his jacket pocket. The fire alarm was my only play. I lunged for the wall panel and smashed it with my elbow. Klaxons blared through the building. Sprinklers kicked on. Delaney shouted something as I bolted for the stairwell, but the sound of my own pulse drowned him out. I didn't stop running until I hit the parking garage 3 floors down. When the police arrived 40 minutes later, the 5th floor was spotless. No powder, no boxes, no Delaney. Just wet carpet and the faintest chemical burn smell. They didn't believe me until K9 unit arrived. The dog went straight for the air vents. Inside, techs found trace amounts of cocaine coating the interior flaps. A week later, maintenance accidentally knocked down part of a 5th floor wall during repairs. Inside the cavity, 200 kilos of pure cocaine packed neatly into reams of Kronos-branded printer paper boxes. The street value exceeded the company's annual profits. Delaney never came back to work. Security footage from that night was corrupted. The other 2 men didn't exist in any employee database. HR claimed I must have mistaken stressed executives. Working late for drug dealers. Then the phone call started. Always around 2:17 a.m. Just heavy breathing for 3 seconds before the line went dead. The 3rd time it happened, a raspy voice whispered, "You missed a spot." That's when I noticed the powder on my doormat, not enough to mean anything, just enough to let me know they'd been there. I moved apartments, changed my number, started checking peepholes before opening doors. 6 months later, I saw Delaney. Again, this time on the news. His body washed up near the docks, hands missing, mouth stuffed full of printer paper. The coroner ruled it a drowning. The fine print mentioned trace cocaine under his fingernails. Now I work days at a hardware store. Minimum wage, no benefits. But at least I know what's inside the walls there. Last month, a cop came in for light bulbs. He recognized me from the Kronos case. "Funny thing," he said while ringing up his purchase. "We finally identified those other 2 guys from your description." He handed me a receipt with 2 names scribbled on the back. Both men had died in a car accident 10 years before my sighting. Sometimes cleaning up means running for your life. The police found the drugs, but they never caught the men I described. Or maybe they did, because 3 weeks after that cop visit, my new landlord found all the air vents in my apartment unscrewed and left open. Inside each one, a single sheet of Kronos letterhead, blank except for 2 fingerprints in the corner, too small to be human. I quit that night. Next morning, the news reported a fire at Kronos Financial. The 5th floor burned hottest. Firefighters described an unusually strong chemical smell. Before the explosion, the company rebuilt. New paint, new carpets, new employees. But sometimes when I walk past at night, I look up. 5th floor windows always glow yellow around 2 a.m. Shadows move behind the blinds. And if you stand in the alley long enough, you can still catch that. Acrid scent drifting down from the vents. My replacement at Kronos quit after 3 weeks. He told the cops he kept finding white powder in his mop water. The surveillance footage from his last night showed him running from the 5th floor at 2:17 aimed straight into an oncoming bus. The medical examiner found nothing in his system. Nothing at all. Not even the caffeine from his half-finished coffee. Just like Delaney, his hands were immaculately clean. Now when I see office cleaners working nights, I warn them about 5th floors. Most laugh it off. A few get that haunted look and change the subject fast. I don't push. But last week, a janitor at the Wells Fargo building 2 blocks over asked if Kronos was still hiring night staff. His hands trembled when I told him no. House sitting seemed like easy money. The Thompson place was nice modern furniture, good AC, a kitchen stocked with food. Mrs. Thompson left me a typed note on the counter. Mi casa es su casa. Don't mind the noises, old houses get lonely. I thought she meant creaky pipes. I was wrong. The scratching started my second night, not the random scuttling of mice. This was methodical 5 slow drags across the inside of the bedroom wall. Then silence, 5 more, always in the same spot behind my headboard. I pressed my ear to the drywall and heard something worse than claws. Breathing, shallow, wet inhalations with a faint whistling noise on each exhale. I called Mrs. Thompson from the driveway. "Oh, that's just Henry," she said breezily. "He gets curious about new people." She claimed it was her cat, though I'd seen no litter box, no food bowls, no cat in any of the family photos. "He likes to hide in the walls," she added before abruptly ending the call. Night 3 was worse. The whispering started around 2 a.m. Not words exactly, just soft, sibilant sounds that formed almost sentences, like someone arguing with themselves. On the other side of the plaster, when I turned on all the lights, the noises stopped, but the air smelled suddenly stale, like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. I found the access panel by accident while vacuuming. A small, square cutout near the baseboard in the hallway, painted over so many times it blended into the wall. The screws were rusted, but I got them loose with a butter knife. Inside wasn't insulation or pipes, just empty space stretching farther than the house's dimensions should allow. A single bare bulb hung from a wire, swinging gently, though no breeze could reach it. The footprints stopped me cold. Dozens of them pressed into the dust, all barefoot, all human-sized, but with toes that tapered strangely. They led deeper into the wall cavity. Against every instinct, I followed. The passage narrowed until I had to crawl. The air grew colder with each foot. Then I saw the handprints. They started at knee-height, smeared like someone had dragged themselves along the passageway. The prints grew fresher looking the farther I went, less dusty, the fingers more clearly defined. The last set looked damp. That's when I heard the creak directly above me. Something shifted its weight in the darkness ahead. I ran. The panel slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the framed photos in the hallway. Mrs. Thompson's wedding portrait now showed a blurred shape, peering from the hallway behind her. Too tall to be human, eyes reflecting the flash in a way no human eyes should. The police found nothing when I demanded they check the walls. Old houses settle, one officer said, but his partner lingered after the others left. He pulled me aside and whispered, "The Thompsons' last house-sitter disappeared 3 months ago. Left all her stuffed phone, wallet, even her wet toothbrush." His flashlight beam caught something on the baseboard, 5 parallel scratches. In the paint, fresh enough that white flecks still dusted the floor. I slept in my car that night. At dawn, I crept back inside for my things. The bedroom wall had changed. The drywall bulged slightly, as if someone had pressed against it from the other side. A wet spot seeped through the paint, the size and shape of a splayed hand. The fingers touched the floor. I took the Thompson key to the locksmith next day. He frowned at the teeth. "This pattern's discontinued," he said. "Haven't made these since the 50s. He slid a standard key into my hand without asking questions. Month, the new owners invited me to see their renovations. The wife complained about funny drafts in the hallway. Her toddler kept pointing at the walls, laughing, saying, "Henry tickles." The remodel photos showed insulation between the studs except behind the bedroom wall. That cavity was empty. The contractor swore he'd stuffed it full of fiberglass himself. Sometimes I drive past that house late at night. The bedroom light's always on, though no one lives there now. Shadows move behind the curtains. Too many shadows. And if you park out front long enough, you'll hear it 5 slow scratches against glass. Then 5 more. Some houses are hungry. Whatever lived in those walls wanted more than just my company. Mrs. Thompson's Facebook shows her in Hawaii now. Her profile picture shows her husband smiling, arm around her shoulders. But if you zoom in, you can see something indistinct reflected in their sunglasses, a tall shape standing in their old hallway, fingers pressing outward against straining drywall. The new owners put the place up for sale last week. The listing mentions charming original details and lots of character. It doesn't mention the cold spot in the master bedroom, or the way the wallpaper sometimes bubbles up in hand-shaped patterns, or the previous tenant who vanished without trace, leaving only a note on the fridge. Henry likes you best. I keep that rusted access panel screw on my keychain now. A reminder. Sometimes late at night, I wake up to 5 faint taps on my apartment wall. I don't answer. I know what happens when you acknowledge the thing in the walls. Mrs. Thompson's last Instagram post showed her standing alone on a beach at sunset. The photo's perfectly composed, except for one detail, a second shadow stretching too long. Behind her, fingers almost touching her ankle. The caption reads, "Missing home." The new tenants moved out after 2 weeks. The realtor says they left in the middle of the night, no forwarding address. All their furniture still inside. The neighbors reported scratching noises for days after. Then silence. The house sits empty now, waiting. The bedroom window stays lit all night, casting a yellow glow on the lawn. Sometimes the light flickers, as if something enormous passes. Between it and the glass dot, the rain came down in sheets that night, turning the highway into a black mirror. I never picked up hitchhikers. Everyone knows better these days. But the girl standing under the broken streetlight looked barely 16, shivering in a soaked t-shirt with no coat. Her thumb stuck out like she'd seen it in old movies. I slowed, down without deciding to. The passenger window rolled down with a whir. "You need a ride?" I asked. She nodded, water dripping from her chin. No words, just climbed into the back seat without making a sound. The door shut with a soft click. She smelled like wet earth and something metallic. In the rearview mirror, her eyes caught my headlights too. Reflective discs like a cat's. Her fingers pointed left at the next turn. Too long, too thin. The joints bent in ways that made my stomach tighten. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Just the wipers and the rain. Every few miles, she'd point another direction with those spidery fingers. The roads got narrower, the trees closer. My phone lost service somewhere around mile 7. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. No answer. The back seat stayed quiet. Then I felt it a warm puff of air on the back of my neck. Too close. The rearview mirror showed an empty seat, but the weight distribution in the car hadn't changed. Something was still there. I hit the brakes too hard. The car fishtailed on the wet pavement. When we stopped, I turned around fully. The seat was empty, but the upholstery was damp where she'd been sitting. The door locks popped up on their own. The rest of the drive home took twice as long. Every shadow looked like her standing by the roadside. Every raindrop on the roof sounded like fingers tapping. When I pulled into my driveway, the backseat floor mat was soaked through in one. Spot the shape of 2 bare feet. That night, I dreamt of long fingers tracing the edge of my bedroom door. I woke to the smell of wet earth. My bathroom mirror was fogged up, except for 2 handprints at the top too high for me to reach. A week later, my neighbor asked why. I'd been driving so slow past her house at midnight. "You had someone in the back seat," she said. "A girl with dark hair." She was waving at me. I checked my car that night. The back seat smelled like rain again. The car dealership found nothing. Wrong when I traded it in? But the salesman hesitated when signing the paperwork. "Funny thing," he said. "Your backseat floor mats are missing." They weren't missing. I'd watched him pull them out himself. Last month, I saw her again. Same stretch of road, same broken streetlight. This time, she wasn't alone. 3 figures stood in the rain. Thumbs out. All with those same reflective eyes. I floored the accelerator dot. Now I take the long way home. Sometimes when I'm driving at night, The rearview mirror shows movement for just a second. I've learned not to look too close. The passenger seat stays empty these days, but the seatbelt sometimes clicks itself locked. My mechanic found mud caked in the seat tracks. Not road mud, darker, thicker, like it came from somewhere deep, underground. He quit returning my calls after the third time he accidentally took my car home overnight. The car's new owner called me last week. He asked about the child's safety lock being engaged on the rear doors. We don't have kids? He said. I didn't tell him the locks haven't worked since that night. Some roads shouldn't be traveled after dark. Whatever I picked up wasn't human, and it's still finding ways back in. Last night, I woke to the sound of rain inside my house. Drips coming from the hallway closet. When I opened it, my missing floor mats tumbled out, soaking wet. Arranged neatly like a nest dot, I moved the car seat all the way forward this morning. The adjustment lever was broken. Something had been sitting behind me the whole drive to work. I could see the imprint in the headrest. The highway department repaved that stretch of road last month. The workers complained about sinkholes opening up at night. One crew foreman quit after his team found handprints inside a freshly poured concrete barrier. Now, I keep salt in my glove compartment. I change my route every day. But sometimes when the rain hits just right, I'll see a figure standing too far back in the tree line. Watching, waiting, one thumb sticking out at an unnatural angle. The DMV photo from my new license came out blurry. Just my face in focus. Behind me, the backdrop shows two reflective dots near my left shoulder. The clerk said it was a lens flare. I didn't tell her my eyes don't glow in the dark. Whatever climbed into my car that night didn't leave when. I stopped believing in it. It just got better at hiding. Last Tuesday, my coffee thermos went missing from the cup holder. I found it in the back seat, still warm, but empty. The lid was unscrewed. From the inside, the car wash attendant refuses to detail my new vehicle. Says the backseat cameras always malfunction when he gets near it. The last time he tried, the vacuum hose got yanked from his hands. No one was in the car. I take the bus now. It's slower, less private. But at least when I ride public transit, there are witnesses, and cameras, and emergency buttons. Still, sometimes when the bus passes, that stretch of road, the windows fog up for no reason. The condensation always forms handprints first, then long streaks, like something dragged its fingers down the glass, watching me drive away without it. The new owner of my old car left me a voicemail last night. Just heavy breathing and the sound of rain. Then a voice that wasn't his whispered, "You left the door unlocked." His wife reported him missing this morning. Police found his car abandoned near that same broken streetlight. The back seat was drenched, though it hadn't rained in days. On the passenger headrest, two handprints pressed into the fabric. Too large to be his, too small to be human. Some passengers don't need an invitation. They just wait for you to slow down enough to let them in. Now when I see someone standing by the road at night, I don't just drive past. I roll up the windows, and I check the back seat twice. The bus driver gave me a strange look yesterday. Said I'd been staring at the empty seat beside me for 20 minutes. I didn't tell him about the cold spot, or the way my breath fogged the window in perfect little circles right where someone's mouth would be, whatever followed me home. That night is getting impatient. This morning, my shower curtain moved on its own. The tiles underneath were wet, and in the steam on the mirror, someone had drawn a smiley face. With too many teeth, I'm moving to the desert next week. Somewhere dry, somewhere far from broken streetlights and rainy highways. Somewhere nothing waits by the roadside with fingers too long and eyes that glow. But first, I have to make one. Last trip past that stretch of road. The new owner's wife begged me to check. She says her husband's phone last pinged near there. And the voicemail he left me? It ended with 3 words, whispered in that same wet voice. Bring a coat. Business trips usually meant nondescript hotel rooms and bad coffee. The Willoughby Inn broke that pattern on my second night. Room 714's door stood slightly open when I returned from dinner, though I definitely locked it. The gap revealed flickering candlelight inside. I pushed the door wider with my shoe. Red symbols covered the walls, not spray paint. Something thicker, brushed on in deliberate strokes. A bed had been pushed aside, the carpet underneath cut away to reveal a large circle etched into the concrete floor. 13 black candles burned along its edge. The air smelled like copper and burnt hair. I backed out slowly. The front desk clerk's smile vanished when I mentioned room 714. That room's under renovation, he said too quickly. His name tag read Martin, but the edges looked freshly glued on. He insisted no one had accessed the room all week. Yet his computer showed it hadn't been rented since May dot at 3:17 a.m. The chanting started. Not from the hallway. The sound came up through the heating vent, muffled but unmistakable. A dozen voices speaking in unison, repeating the same 3-syllable phrase every 30 seconds. The AC unit cut off abruptly mid-cycle. The chanting stopped exactly when the digital clock blinked to 3:33. The hotel library turned out to be a gold mine. Wedged behind a dusty encyclopedia set, I found a 1982 guest registry. Room 714 had 12 occupants that year, each name ticked off in the same red ink. Beside every entry, the same notation, transferred to the night. The last name was circled Liam Carter, checked in March 15th, never checked out. His photo still hung in the lobby's Employee of the Month display. The morning manager found me in the library. His reaction to the book was all wrong, not confusion, but resignation. Mr. Carter was our night auditor, he said. Disappeared during his shift. He pretended not to see the red fingerprints on the registry's cover. I switched hotels that afternoon. The clerk at checkout handed me a receipt with no total, just the words, "See you soon," printed where the amount should be. That night, my new hotel's phone rang at 3:17 a.m. No one spoke, but I could hear breathing. And behind that, faint chanting. A construction worker at the Starbucks the next morning recognized the Willoughby's address. They're tearing that place down next month, he said. When I asked why, he stirred his coffee slowly. Plumbing issues. His sleeve rode up when he reached for sugar, revealing a faded red mark on his wrist, one of the symbols from room 714. The demolition made local news. The reporter mentioned unexpected delays when workers refused to enter certain areas. The footage showed room 714's door, still intact amid the rubble, the number plaque shining like new. That should have been the end of it. Then the emails started. Your reservation is confirmed. Notifications for room 714. Always sent at 3:17 a.m. The link goes to a website that doesn't exist. Reply emails come from front desk at willoughbyinn.com, a domain registered the day after the demolition. Last week, I drove past the lot where the hotel stood. The fence had blown over in a storm, revealing the foundation. Right where room 714 would be, someone had planted 13 black candles in a perfect circle, all lit. No one around for blocks. The city sealed the site after that. The construction. Foreman told reporters they'd found evidence of squatting. He didn't explain why his crew quit en masse the next day. Neither did the police report about 12 missing persons files matching Willoughby. Employees from 1982. My boss thinks I'm paranoid for refusing assignments near that neighborhood. He'll change his mind when he sees tonight's email. It came through while he was in a meeting one I wasn't invited to. Conference room reservation confirmed. The subject line read, The location? Willoughby site, temporary structure. Time slot, 3:17 a.m. to infinity. Some check-ins have no checkout date. The emails keep coming. Last night's included an attachment photo of 13 people standing in a circle. 12 faces I recognize from the missing persons files. The 13th space is empty. Waiting. The wrecking ball didn't solve whatever lives at that address. It just made room for something worse. Construction resumes next month. I overheard the new foreman bragging about his crew's efficiency. Said they'd finish ahead of schedule. His wrist bore a familiar red mark when he checked his watch. My company booked me at a motel across town for next week's conference. I called to confirm. The clerk said they'd upgraded me to a suite. Room 714. When I hung up, my calendar notification buzzed. The event title just said Homecoming. Time, 3:17 a.m. Location. Here. The Willoughby's website updated yesterday. Only one page works. It shows a live feed of the demolition site. The timestamp's frozen at 3:33. In the center of the frame, 13 candles burn despite the rain. 12 in a tight circle, one slightly apart, waiting for the match. I sleep with the lights on now. It doesn't help. Dreams come anyway. Always the same standing in that circle, watching the 13th candle gutter out. Then the whispers start. They're not saying words. They're counting. 16, 17, 30-3. The hotel's gone. The reservations aren't. My boss forwarded me an email this morning. Apparently, I booked the entire sales team at the Willoughby for next quarter's retreat. The confirmation lists all our names. Beside mine, a note, transferred to the night they demolished the building, not the reservation book. My lawyer says the emails aren't legally binding. I didn't tell him about the voicemail from Martin, reminding me about late check-in fees, or the shadow that falls across my bedroom wall at exactly 3:17 each morning, cast by nothing in the room. The construction crew poured new foundations yesterday. The foreman didn't answer when I asked why they skipped the northeast corner. He just checked his watch right wrist, red mark clearly visible, and said they were right on schedule. 13 days behind, actually. But who's counting? The candles reappeared last night. 13 of them arranged in my parking spot. All burning when I called the cops. All gone when they arrived. The pavement wasn't even warm. Some buildings don't stay demolished. Some reservations don't expire. And some check-ins like the one happening tonight at 3:17 a.m. don't need doors to let them in. Just darkness. And the willingness of 13 people to keep counting. My alarm set for 3:16. I wonder which will wake me first, the buzzing or the sound of my own voice joining the chant. The hotel may be gone, but room 714 is right on schedule. Always accepting new guests. Always needing just one more. I finally looked up the chant's meaning. It's not Latin, not any language. Just 3 syllables, over and over. Translated, they mean, the circle grows. My laptop just dinged. Another reservation confirmed. Checkout time is left blank. The construction foreman called me today. Said they found something in the rubble. A guest book, perfectly preserved. Every page filled with names. All checked in. None checked out. He asked if I wanted to see it. I said yes. The delivery arrives tonight. The realtor smiled too, wide when she called the house cozy. I should have asked why the previous owners sold after just 3 weeks. The paperwork said relocation for work. But the neighbors told a different story. Old Mrs. Hendricks from across the street watched me move in through her curtains. She finally approached on day 4, handing me a casserole dish with shaking hands. They slept in their car the last 2 nights, she whispered. Said the walls moved when they weren't looking. At first, I thought it was just old house quirks. Doors opened by themselves, but only when I wasn't facing them. Photos developed with dark smudges in the background shapes that weren't there when I took them. My cat refused to go near the basement door. That's where the real trouble started. The furnace kicked on every night at exactly 11:17 p.m. Normal enough, except for the sigh that followed. Not the groan of pipes or the creak of expanding metal. This was wetter, deeper, like someone exhaling after holding their breath too long. I checked the vents, even crawled under the house. Nothing but dust and cobwebs. Then came the night. Power went out. No furnace, no hum of appliances. Just me and the awful silence of an empty house. That's when I heard the sigh from the basement. Without the furnace running. The door at the bottom of the stairs stood slightly ajar, though I always kept it locked. Something scratched against the concrete floor down there. Slow, deliberate. I called a handyman to inspect the basement. He lasted 10 minutes before packing. His tools. "Ain't nothing wrong with your furnace," he said, avoiding my eyes. "But I ain't going back down there." He left without charging me. His work order simply read, "House doesn't want to be fixed." The temperature dropped the next week. Not uniformly, just in certain spots. A patch of air near the staircase would be freezing while the rest of the room stayed warm. I set up a camera in the living room to catch the doors opening by themselves. The footage showed something else entirely. Around 3 a.m. each night, the air near the basement door thickened, like heat waves off asphalt, but cold instead of hot. Then the door would creak open an inch. Nothing ever came out. The camera never caught what went in. My girlfriend refused to stay over after her first night. She woke up screaming because something was breathing on her neck. The bedroom door had locked itself from the outside. Not just breath, she told me later, like ... something inhaling. She moved to California 2 weeks after that. Didn't even take all her stuff. The last straw came when I found the finger marks. Not on the walls or floors inside them. I was replacing a cracked outlet cover when I noticed the drywall behind it. Deep grooves ran vertically through the plaster, too smooth to be tool marks, too close together to be anything but fingers. The electrician who came to check the wiring quit halfway through the job. He showed me why every junction box we opened had scratches inside. None of the wires were damaged. It was like something had reached through while the power was live. And just traced the copper. I put the house on the market after that. The realtor didn't mention the breathing to prospective buyers. Neither did I. The young couple who bought it seemed nice enough. Their kid loved the basement, which should have been my first red flag. Last I heard, they converted it into a playroom. The wife posted photos online, brightly colored toys arranged in a perfect circle on the concrete floor. She captioned it, "Our little one's imaginary friend loves it down here. I drive by sometimes." The windows are always open now, even in winter. Not for fresh air, the glass panels are thrown wide, like something needs constant access. The new owners wave cheerfully when they see me. Their daughter waves too. Her hands leave smudges on the glass. Darker than dirt. Thicker. Every time I pass, the basement light is on, glowing yellow through those high, narrow windows. If you look close, you can see the shadows moving down there. Not cast by furniture. Not matching anything upstairs. Not all haunted houses rattle chains. This one was alive, and it didn't like being alone. The new owners seem happy enough, though. Last week, they put up a swing set in the backyard. It rocks by itself sometimes, even when there's no wind. Their daughter giggles when it happens. Says it's just her friend playing. I never told them about the journal I found hidden in the attic. The previous owner's handwriting filled every page, getting shakier toward the end. The last entry read, It learns fast, wants to come upstairs, now wants to wear our skin. The page after that was just a child's drawing, a smiling stick figure standing next to something tall with too many limbs. The caption read, "Me in my house." Sometimes I think about calling those new owners. Warning. Them. Then I remember the realtor's smile when she sold me the place. And I wonder, does the house breathe easier now that there's a child inside? Or does it just have more reasons to stay quiet? The last time I drove by, all the curtains were drawn tight, except in the basement. Those windows stayed wide open, breathing, watching, waiting for the next owners to get curious. The house sold again last month. The new family moved in yesterday. I watched from the street as they carried boxes inside. Their little boy ran straight for the basement door. I almost shouted when he turned the knob. Almost. But then his mother called him away, and the moment passed. They'll learn soon enough. Everyone does. Not all homes shelter their occupants. Some just digest them slowly. The boy's ball rolled into the basement this afternoon. His dad went down to get it. Came up coughing, said the dust was terrible down. There. Didn't mention the fingernail scratches on the support beam. Didn't notice they formed words if you looked sideways. Just two, repeated over and over. Stay down. I should have told them, warned them, but the house has my voice now. When? The phone rang last night. The caller ID showed my old number. The line crackled with something that almost sounded like breathing. Almost, but not quite. I hung up fast. 3 seconds later, my current landline rang. No sound this time. Just 12 slow, wet exhales before the call dropped. The new neighbors wave to me now when I walk past. Their smiles don't reach their eyes anymore. The little boy's building a fort in the basement this weekend. His father joked about it at the mailbox. Said the kid keeps talking about his private room down there. I didn't tell him about the thumping I heard last night, or how it matched. The rhythm of a heartbeat. Some houses aren't haunted. They're hungry. And this one's just gotten its appetite back. The diner was dead at 2 a.m., like always just me, the coffee pot, and the hum of the refrigerators. Then the bell jingled. 2 guys in blue work uniforms walked in, the kind mechanics wear. Their boots left sticky trails on my freshly mopped floor. Not mud. Not oil. Something darker that soaked into the tiles. They took booth 4, the one under the broken security camera. The bigger one kept glancing at the other cameras while his friend muttered, "We can't move it until 3 a.m. Like they were on some messed up schedule. I brought them menus neither opened. "Just coffee," the quieter one said. His fingernails had rust-colored crust under them. I poured with my back to them, watching in the stainless steel fridge door. Reflection. The loud one pulled something from his pocket, a rag, bunched up and stiff in places. When he thought I wasn't looking, he dropped it in my clean trash can. The way it hit bottom wasn't right. Fabric shouldn't sound that wet. The phone was in the kitchen by the walk-in. I dialed 911 first, then turned on the blender to drown out my whispering. The dispatcher barely heard me over the noise. 2 males, khaki uniforms, I breathed. Possible. Blood evidence. My hands shook stacking clean cups while the blender roared. I didn't say the rest how the quiet one had leaned over to wipe the table with a napkin, how he'd missed the red smear by his elbow. When I came back with their pies, the loud one stood up too fast. His chair screeched. "Just need the bathroom," he said, but he was looking at the front door. His buddy's fingers tapped the table 5 times, then 5 again, like a countdown. The bathroom was past the kitchen. I watched him go left instead, of right, toward the emergency exit, toward where I'd parked my car. The soda machine chose that moment to hiss. Both men twitched. The quiet one's coffee cup slipped, splashing black across the table. It mixed with the red streak. For a second, the whole booth looked like a crime scene. Then he was mopping at it frantically with napkins, his eyes darting to the clock. 2:47. I ducked behind the counter, pretending to check supplies. The walk-in handle was cold in my palm. I could hide there if things went bad. The cops would come eventually. Maybe before my air ran out. Maybe after. The bathroom guy came back empty-handed. No, not empty. Something glinted in his palm when he sat down. My car keys. They left exact change under a coffee cup at 2:58 a.m. Not a tip. A message the coins were arranged in a cross. Heads up. The quiet ones smiled at me on their way out. Not a friendly smile. A see you later smile. Their truck was still idling when the first patrol car rolled in. The cops found the rag first. "That's a lot of blood for a nosebleed," the female officer said. It wasn't a rag. It was part of a shirt sleeve. The trash can liner held more three. Shredded receipts stuck together with something tacky. The manager made me keep working while they dusted for Prince Dot at 4 a.m. Dispatch called back. A night watchman was missing from the industrial park 2 miles away. His locker was open, work shirt gone. Security footage showed 2 men dragging something heavy toward a truck at 1:30 a.m. Our diner's cameras caught the truck's plate clear. As day dot, the cops found the watchman in a drainage ditch behind the bowling alley, dead 6 hours by then, long before those men ever walked into my diner. Their coffee break was just a pit stop. The truck bed had bleach stains. The cab smelled like my peach air freshener. Minimum wage shouldn't mean playing detective with killers. That black and white photo they showed me at the station, the watchman was my regular. Always ordered apple pie a la mode. Always left $1. Tips stacked in neat piles. Now I keep a baseball bat behind the counter, not for robbers. For the next guys who come in with that look, the one that says they've already decided you're not a person, just a witness to eliminate. The detective said I saved their investigation. The bloody rag had skin cells under the watchman's nails. The quiet one got life. The loud one cut a deal. He's up for parole next year. I still work nights. Someone has 2, but I don't wear my name tag anymore. Don't make small talk. And when customers ask why I'm so jumpy, I point to the new security cameras. The ones with no blind spots. They fired me at the old diner. Said I compromised the crime scene by fishing my keys from the grease trap. Found them right where bathroom guy tossed them. Still sticky. Still smelling like bleach. The new place doesn't do pies. Doesn't do booths either. Just counter service where everyone's in plain view. Last week, a cop came in for coffee. Said the loud one asked about me at his hearing. Wanted to know if I still worked nights. My manager installed. Panic buttons after that? Bright red. Impossible to miss. Sometimes I press mine accidentally reaching for the sugar. The cops come anyway. They understand. 2 nights ago, a guy in a work uniform left his check on the counter. The coins were stacked in a cross again. Heads up. The security footage showed nothing unusual. Just me screaming at an empty diner. I quit the next morning. Now I stock shelves at a 24-hour grocery. The pay's worse. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. But at least when I mop the floors, the stains come up clean. Some lessons stick like blood in grout. That night taught me to trust the prickling on my neck more than the smile on a customer's face. The watchman's family sent me a thank you card last year. I keep it in my apron pocket, right next to the panic button. Sleep paralysis wasn't new. To me, I'd had episodes since college, that frozen feeling, the weight on my chest. But the shadow at the foot of my bed changed last Tuesday. This one had details. A mouth stretching too wide, corners splitting at unnatural angles. Fingers that drummed on my nightstand in a rhythm that almost matched my racing heartbeat. It leaned in close that first night, close enough that I smelled stale breath and something chemical, like old hospital disinfectant. The smile never wavered. "You're awake," it whispered. Not a question, a confirmation. The words bubbled like something speaking through water. I scheduled a sleep study the next morning. The clinic wired me up with electrodes, tucked me into a stiff hospital bed. "We'll monitor your brain activity," the technician said. I didn't tell her about the shadow. Didn't mention how it had followed me to the parking lot the night before, standing motionless under a flickering streetlight as I fumbled with my keys. The EEG results came back abnormal. Not the usual sleep paralysis readings. "You were completely conscious during the episode," the doctor said, avoiding my eyes. He showed me the footage on his monitor, my rigid body on camera, eyes wide open, and the screen glitched. When it cleared, a dark shape loomed over the hospital bed, fingers stretching toward the EEG leads. The doctor deleted the file immediately. "Equipment malfunction," he muttered. I started sleeping with the lights on after that. It didn't help. The visits became nightly occurrences. Always at 3:07 a.m., the shadow would materialize from the darkest corner, its grin widening when it saw me watching. Sometimes it brought friends' paler figures with hollow eyes that crowded around my bed, whispering in languages that hurt my teeth. My landlord found the scratches first. 5 parallel grooves carved into the wall above my headboard. Too deep to be fingernails, too precise to be animal. The maintenance man patched them without comment, but his hands shook the whole time. The sleep specialist referred me to a neurologist. We did more tests, more wires. This time, they used infrared cameras. The footage showed my room empty, except for me, until exactly 3:07 a.m., when every monitor flatlined for 13 seconds. When the image returned, my pillowcase was stained with something dark and viscous. The technician quit the next day. I moved apartments last month. Didn't leave a forwarding address with the leasing office. The first night in my new place, I bolted awake at 3:06 a.m., sweat cooling on my skin. My phone's camera roll had 27 new photos, all taken between 2:30 and 2:45 a.m. Each one showed me sleeping peacefully, each shot from a slightly different angle, as if something had circled the bed, deciding where to settle. The worst part isn't the visits. It's the small changes I keep finding. My toothpaste tube squeezed from the middle, though I always roll from the bottom. My shower curtain pushed aside exactly 6 inches every morning. A single coffee mug left in the sink with traces of thick black saliva drying on the rim. Last week, I woke to find my notebook open on the kitchen table. 7 pages filled with cramped handwriting that wasn't mine. The same phrase repeated hundreds of times. "We like watching you sleep." Beneath it, a crude map of my new apartment complex. Every unit marked with dates and times, as if something had been casing the building. The neurologist's last email arrived yesterday. His message was brief: "Discontinuing your case. Please don't contact this office again." The attachment showed my latest brain scan. The shadow of a hand pressed against the inside of my skull, fingers splayed across the frontal lobe. The timestamp read 3:07 a.m. Now I keep the TV on all night for the noise and light. Sometimes the volume drops suddenly at 3:07, the screen filling with static just long enough for shapes to move in the distortion. They're learning to use technology. My new neighbor complained about the lights last week. Said they could see my silhouette through my curtains at night, standing perfectly, still for hours. But I haven't slept standing up since this started. Some nightmares are real, and they're patient. I know this because they left me a note under my pillow 2 nights ago. The paper smelled like old hospitals and wet earth. The message was short: "Turn off the lights." We want to see your face when we come back. I bought blackout curtains yesterday. Not to keep the dark out, to keep something in. The doctor's EEG was right about one thing. I am awake during their visits now. Wide awake. Lying perfectly still, while cold fingers trace my eyelids. Waiting for the moment they decide watching isn't enough anymore. The sleep clinic's billing department called this morning. Side I owed for damaged equipment. The representative mentioned technicians had found fingerprints inside the EEG machine, not on the sensors inside the wiring. The tech report described them as elongated and partially fused. I hung up without paying. The call log shows the conversation lasted 13 minutes. My phone says 7. The missing 6? That's when they must have whispered whatever made the billing rep sound so afraid. Now I watch the clock from 3 o'clock to 3:30 every night. Sometimes it skips directly from 3:06 to 3:08. Those lost minutes account for the new scratches on my ceiling fan, the ones shaped like something heavy being dragged upward. The worst nights aren't when they come. It's when they don't. The silence stretches too long. The shadows move wrong. And behind all those waking nightmares lingers one terrible truth. They're getting better at hiding their visits. Last night marked 67 days since this started. I no longer scream when they appear. No longer flinch when their fingers brush my cheek. The grinning shadow seems almost disappointed now. I think it liked my fear better. The others certainly did. Tonight's my birthday. The clock just struck midnight. 3 hours and 7 minutes to go. The overhead light flickered twice as I wrote this. I'll leave it on when I climb into bed. Not just for me. For the shapes crowding my closet doorway right now. Their smiles glow in the dark. A new note appeared on my fridge while I wasn't looking. This one written in something sticky and red. Blow out your candles. We want to see your face in the dark. The apartment listing said spacious 1-bedroom, recently renovated. It didn't mention why it was suddenly available. The landlord handed me the keys with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Last tenant moved out unexpectedly, he said. Left in a hurry. I should have asked more questions. I found the writing on day 3. A corner of the bedroom wallpaper had peeled back near the baseboard. Underneath, in shaky black marker, someone had scrawled, "He comes through the walls at 3:33. I laughed and texted a photo to my friends. The laughter died at 3:32 a.m. when the scratching started. Not mice, not pipes. This was something bigger dragging itself through the wall cavity. I lay frozen as the sound traveled from behind the headboard to the ceiling. Plaster dust rained down onto my pillow. The digital clock flickered from 3:33 to 3:34, and the noise stopped mid-scrape, like whatever it was suddenly froze. The super rolled his eyes when I complained. Old building, he said, settling. But his flashlight beam lingered on the bedroom. Wall longer than necessary. The next day, the landlord just happened to stop by while I was at work. My neighbor told me he spent 20 minutes in my apartment alone. All the scratched wall areas were freshly spackled when I got home. I set up my phone to record overnight. The video showed me sleeping peacefully until 3:33 a.m., and my sleeping form suddenly sat bolt upright, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. The timestamp jumped to 3:34, and I was asleep again. No memory of waking. The wall looked different, though. The new spackle patches stood out slightly darker, like something had disturbed them. The building manager refused to watch the footage. Instead, he showed me records proving the apartment had 6 tenants in the past 2 years. None stayed longer than 3 months. All left without notice. The last one, a grad student named Marcus, abandoned everything clothes still in drawers. Toothbrush by the sink, laptop open on the kitchen table. His parents filed a missing persons report. It was still open. I started sleeping on the couch. That's when the knocking began. 3 soft taps on the wall, directly behind the sofa. Always. At 3:33 a.m., one night I knocked back. The response came immediately, 3 harder knocks that vibrated through the wall. Then silence. The super found me the next morning, asleep in my car in the parking lot. I don't remember leaving the apartment. The police did a welfare check when I stopped answering my phone for 2 days. They found all my bedroom furniture stacked against one wall in a crude barricade. Not just pushed, the dresser was wedged so tight they had to disassemble it to move it. My sheets were knotted into ropes anchored to the bed frame. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints but mine. Moved out the next week. The landlord kept my deposit for unapproved modifications. The new tenant emailed me last month, a med student working night shifts. He asked if I'd ever experienced sleepwalking in the unit. Said he keeps waking up with plaster dust on his hands and under his nails. His CCTV camera caught him standing facing the bedroom wall from 3:33 to 3:34 every night, not moving, not blinking. The building was constructed in 1927. Records show it was built over an old service tunnel that was sealed off in the 1950s. No blueprints exist of the tunnel system. The current owner refuses to comment on why inspection records show concrete patches in strange places throughout the basement, some at shoulder height on the walls, some on the ceiling. Marcus' laptop eventually went to his parents. The tech who examined it found the webcam had been activated every night for weeks before his disappearance. The last file was corrupted, except for one frame, a blurry shape emerging from what looks like a crack in the bedroom wall. The timestamp reads 3:33 a.m. I drive past the building sometimes. My old bedroom window always has the light on, though the unit's been empty for months. The super says it's motion activated. Says the light turns on by itself between 3:30 and 3:35 a.m. every night. Maintenance can't figure out why. Cheap rent isn't worth your life. Whatever took Marcus still has a key. The new tenant stopped responding to emails last week. The super found his bed perfectly made, his clothes neatly folded. His phone was charging on the kitchen counter. The screen showed 33 missed calls from his mother. The last outgoing call was to my number at 3:33 a.m., lasting exactly 1 minute. I never got the call. The landlord listed the apartment again yesterday. Recently renovated, the ad says. Great natural light. It doesn't mention the fresh spackle patches in the bedroom. Doesn't explain why they had to replace the drywall in the hallway. The showing is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. I thought about warning the prospective tenants. Then I remembered how no one warned me. Some doors shouldn't be opened. Some walls shouldn't be touched. And some apartments come with previous tenants who never really left. Marcus' parents still put up missing posters around town. The med student's car still sits in the parking spot he paid for. And every night at 3:33, a light flicks on in that empty bedroom. Just for a minute. Just long enough for something to check if anyone's home. The dressing room felt too quiet. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the rustle of hangers as I tried on the black dress. I turned to check the back in the mirror, smoothing the fabric over my hips. That's what had happened. My reflection blinked. I froze, the dress suddenly tight around my throat. The me in the mirror smiled slowly. A smile I wasn't making dotted. Raised one finger to its lips. Not a reflection anymore. The movement was all wrong, delayed by half a second, like bad video lag. The eyes stayed locked on mine, while its other hand reached up to touch the glass from the other side. I screamed, stumbling back into the clothes rack. The reflection lunged forward, both palms slamming against the mirror with a sound like cracking. I thought the salesgirl came running. She found me on the floor, my back pressed to the wall. The mirror showed only my terrified face now, mouth open, breathing hard. "Just a panic attack," she said, helping me up, but her fingers trembled on my arm. She'd heard the impact. 2-store security pulled the cameras. The footage cut out right before my screen, just static for exactly 6 seconds. The manager offered me a discount. The reflection hadn't shown up on camera. Only me, falling. Like someone had pushed me. I went home and scrubbed my face raw. The bathroom mirror stayed normal. For a week, I avoided all reflections. Used my phone screen to check my hair. Wore sunglasses indoors. Then the dreams started. Every night, at 3 a.m., I'd wake certain something stood beside my bed. The bedside mirror would be fogged up, except for 2 clear handprints. Too big to be mine. The department store called me back 2 weeks later. The repairman had found something. Under the mirror's backing, pressed against the glass adult-sized fingerprints in some greasy substance. Not on the surface, inside. Like someone had touched the reflective side before assembly. But the grime was fresh. Still tacky when they peeled the mirror apart. I Googled the store's location. The building used to be a funeral home in the 1950s. The dressing room walls were once viewing parlors. An old article mentioned complaints from mourners, one claiming a loved one's reflection had moved after death. The funeral director dismissed it as grief hallucinations. The dreams got worse. Now I'd wake with my hands pressed to my bedroom mirror, fingertips white from pressure. No memory of getting up. One morning I found faint smudges on the glass too high for me to reach. The shape of someone standing behind me, their hands overlapping mine. I moved apartments. Got rid of all full-length mirrors. But reflections find ways. Car windows. Office building facades. The toaster's curved surface. Last week, my laptop camera turned on during a Zoom call. My coworkers said I froze mid-sentence, face going blank. Then I'd leaned forward, eyes unblinking, until my nose almost touched the screen. The microphone picked up whispering. 7 people swore it sounded like me saying, "Almost through." My new therapist suggested sleep medication. The pills gave me one peaceful night. Then the dreams came back stronger. This time, I didn't wake. Up, I watched from somewhere behind myself as something moved my body. Saw my hands write, "Let me in," on the bathroom mirror in toothpaste. Saw my mouth stretch into that department store smile. The repair slip from the store got misfiled. I only found it because the manager quit suddenly. His handwritten note read, "Second set of prints found behind dressing room. Mirror. Smaller. Child-sized. Technician refuses to return." The date matched a missing persons case. A little girl who vanished from that store in 1987. She'd been last seen near the dressing rooms. I cover all mirrors now. Tape up reflective surfaces. But sometimes when I'm not looking, the tape peels back. Last night, I woke to scraping sounds from the closet. The full-length mirror I'd wrapped in blankets stood exposed. The covering lay in shreds on the floor. The glass was fogged up with breath, not mine. A single word scratched into the condensation. Soon. Not all reflections show the truth. Some show what's waiting to take your place. My phone died this morning. When I charged it, the locked screen showed 2 faces mine on the left. Something wearing my face on the right. The timestamp read 3:03 a.m. The temperature reads 33 degrees. Got my hands shake typing this. The department store burned down last night. Electrical fault, the news says. The fire marshal found all the mirrors in one. Room shattered from behind. The surveillance system failed, except for one frame. Showed a woman in a black dress walking into the fire. The timestamp glitched. 3:03 a.m. The security guard quit on the spot. Said the woman looked just like the customer who'd reported a mirror incident 2 months ago. Except I never went back. And the dress I tried on that day? The sales records show it sold weeks ago, to a woman matching my description. The receipt was signed in handwriting nearly identical to mine. But I don't own that dress, Dot, at least. Not yet. The rain taps gently against your window as these stories fade into the night. The world holds shadows we can't explain, strangers who watch too closely, reflections that move alone, whispers from places that should be empty. But tonight, you're safe under blankets, listening to the storm. That creak in the hallway? Just old wood settling. The flicker of your lamp? A draft, nothing more. Probably Dot's sleep comes easier when you pretend the dark is just dark. So close. Your eyes. Let the rain's rhythm chase the lingering chills away. But maybe leave one light burning. For comfort. For safety. Just in case.